I tuned in.
You got off the camera.
5 or 6 meetings.
But if you want 15 on Wednesdays,
It's trying now.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, right.
Good afternoon. Welcome into the Senate Committee on Government Operations Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. We're going to begin today with the requests from the Ethics Commission, and Paul Earlbaum will join us first at the chair.
Oh, it's Pepper.
Oh,
Yes.
trying to clear it off.
Understood. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, senators. Thank you for inviting me here to tell you about the status of the Vermont Ethics Commission. My name is Paul Earlbaum. I'll skip my autobiography. I'll simply say that I'm the chair of the Vermont State Ethics Commission. As far as the current status of the Ethics Commission, the continued existence of the commission is precarious. Put it that way. And I'm paraphrasing what I've written, but I haven't submitted. And my understanding is that in order for the Ethics Commission to get an appropriation through the Appropriations Committee, we need a recommendation from you folks to go to the Appropriations Committee. Am I understanding that correctly?
It certainly helps.
It helps. All right.
They will take testimony on their own and make final decision.
Well, I'm hoping today that I can convince you to recommend to the Appropriations Committee an increase in our budget such that we can get 2 new staff people. Right now, we have a half-time executive director and a half-time administrative assistant, which is not nearly enough staff for us to fulfill the duties that were assigned to us back in 2018. And then in 2024, with Act 171, the legislature created the Municipal Code of Ethics and assigned the Ethics Commission the task of providing municipalities with advice on this new code. Of course, a flood of municipal requests for advice flowed into our office, and our staff tried hard to respond, and we could not respond adequately. And unfortunately, we just couldn't keep up with the demand. So in May, on the top of our website, now there's a message saying, with regret, due to lack of staffing, the State Ethics Commission can no longer provide advisory and complaint services to municipalities. Also in 2024, Act 171 granted to the Ethics Commission its first, I'll use the metaphor, teeth. We've been a toothless organization. Finally, right? Investigatory powers, hearing powers. But H1 last session pushed that date a couple of years forward because we didn't have the staff to implement it. We still don't have the staff. So at this point, with those 2 unfunded mandates, we're just stymied. We don't have the staff to do what we've been assigned to do by this legislature. TJ Jones will be speaking with us a little later. He's worked with ethics commissions around the country for years now, and he can give you a little perspective about what other ethics commissions, state ethics commissions do. In my write-up, I mentioned just one, the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island has just slightly less than double Vermont's population, but their ethics commission staff has 12. They have an adequate staff. They have significant authority. Our budget has been quite modest for years. $250,000 is our core budget for this year, and it's pretty much the same as it has been for several years. And if we were to secure more staff, it would be more than doubling our budget. But this is what we're looking for. And we know this is a really, really tight budget year. We're not doubting that. But the commission staff is just treading water, and frankly, we're going to go down unless we get staff. as tight as the budget is, we believe having substantial ethics protocols should be a legislative priority. And we urge this committee to recommend to the Appropriations Committee funding for 2 positions. I'll take any questions if you'd like, but we should be hearing from Will Stevens, another commissioner, as well as TJ Jones, and from Pat McDonald, but I'll be glad to take questions.
So I noticed in your written testimony, the total proposed budget is $601,000. Is that right?
That is correct.
Senator Clarkson?
Oh, good. So 601, that is 2 positions. And so, we have a new member. Paul, did you meet John?
We've said hi to each
John
other.
Roy. So, and not everybody was here. Brian and I were the 2 that were here when we formed the Ethics Commission. Thank you, Pat, who was one of the great pillars behind making it happen. And we have failed continually to be able, we put teeth behind by finally creating a state code of ethics, as you mentioned, a couple of years ago. But we have from the beginning really failed to put the teeth behind making the Ethics Commission a force in the state. And even with, so you are charged, for John's sake, if you just be kind enough to remind us all what your duties are, because you take all of the ethics complaints and you farm them out to the appropriate bodies who oversee some of them, but you also are charged with training. And I believe that also has fallen by the way, training, municipal bodies, training all bodies that ask for in state government, out of state government, municipal government, do ethics trainings for people. And if you could just describe some of what you're charged with doing, so that we can appreciate why other than the fact that we need more staff to process all the complaints that have been coming in.
Of course. When the Ethics Commission was first created in 2018, frankly, it seemed like a silly setup because we were charged with referring complaints, ethics complaints that would come in, whether it was the executive branch or the Attorney General's office or this or that. But there's really no need for us to do that because a citizen could go directly to the Attorney General's office or directly to the Human Resources Department. So it just seemed like it was putting in an extra step. But in 2022, I believe it was, the legislature passed a state code of ethics. So without any enforcement, at least there were guidelines. What is a gift? What is a conflict of interest, etc. And then in 2024, with Act 171, the legislature gave us powers to do investigations over state public servants, not municipal, but state public servants, and conduct investigations and hearings. And to the extent there was any teeth, it was the power to scold, to publicly scold, basically.
Oh, the power to follow up.
And to follow up, that's true too. And to make recommendations for training or this or that. But certainly no monetary penalties or anything like that. As far as training goes, we have devised an online training for municipalities as well as for state workers. But Senator Clarkson, you're right. Our in-person trainings have largely, not altogether, but largely fallen by the wayside for lack of staff. Again, a half-time executive director and a half-time administrative assistant. And so we continue to get requests for advice or guidance, both from municipalities and from state public servants. We're doing our best to keep up. With the state public servants, we've given up on the municipalities. It was just a flood. We couldn't do it.
Yeah, and in some ways they are now your greatest need because for legislators and attorneys and various other entities, we have our own ethics panels that address, once you send us those complaints, we deal with them, but you deal with a lot of the other complaints that need to be addressed.
We do, and so we give advice as we can, give guidance when we can. And just to follow up on Senator Clarkson's example, when a complaint comes in about a member of the House or a member of the Senate, the Ethics Commission, as of last year with H1, is now required to provide an opinion to the House or Senate panel as the complaint is sent over. What areas of law do we think are covered by this? And of course, it puts us in the funny position of being asked for an opinion before there's an investigation. Which is, we asked for that not to be inserted last year, but it was. So we're doing the best we can.
Senator Mikulski.
My understanding is that we actually further delayed the investigatory and even the required opinion in H1 last year.
I think the required opinion has kicked in already, and we've already provided one to the House Ethics Panel.
Okay.
But as far as the investigation powers, my understanding from this committee is that it was being postponed to September 2027 because we simply don't have the staff to implement it.
Would these additional 2 staff people give you the capacity to bring the municipal oversight back on board?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, really, frankly, and again, TJ Jones would, he can give all of us a better idea because he knows how other ethics commissions work. It would still be quite the spare staff. I think what TJ had said to me was that we need a minimum of 4.5 full-time. But if we had 2 more staff people to get us up to 3 full-time equivalents, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I certainly know within the municipalities I represent, I often get sort of frustration from constituents that there is no mechanism by which to even ask, is this ethical? Because what it ends up being a circular process where we require municipalities to have an ethics officer, but that's usually a member of that group who's like, yeah, of course it is. Not an ethics professional, not someone who really can weigh that from a legal standpoint against the law. So I definitely see the incredible need there. And of course, so do you, given that there was such a flood of those when it went live. My other question for you, in terms of this sort of toothlessness, you had referenced that you have an ability to reprimand. Is that true even when the ethics complaint is surrounding not core legislation issues that are not core legislative function? Because my understanding is for core legislative function, the Senate and the House respectively have the only authority, but when it's not within the realm of core legislative function, the authority, I would assume, falls to the Ethics Commission.
I believe you're right. I think you're right. And if I could just interject just a stray thought that's come up, because you said how important it could be for the Ethics Commission to be able to give advice. What I'm hearing through the grapevine is that municipalities are, because they can't come to us at this point, are going to Vermont League of Cities and Towns. My feeling is that the league has a conflict of interest. They serve as insurers to the towns, and giving an opinion on an ethics question, I'm sure they're good people, but it's hard to separate economic interests. So I would feel a lot better if municipalities were coming to the Ethics Commission rather than to the League of Cities and Towns. Makes sense?
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
We're going to switch witnesses, and I have Will Stevens up next, but if Thomas Jones wants to jump ahead of him in the lineup, feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it might be better to hear from both the commission members first, unless it pleases the committee for me to go ahead of them.
You all have the written testimony from Will and Paul and TJ. Should have been on your desk.
Hey, Will.
So go ahead, Will.
Thanks very much. And in light of the conversation that's just been had, I feel like some of my testimony will be redundant, but I'll stick to the script for the record anyway. My name is Will Stevens. I'm from Shoreham in Addison County. And I want to thank you very much for taking the time today to hear from us. I'm a vegetable farmer, a former state rep from 2007 to 2014, and a public servant who's served as on the Shoreham Select Board, the Planning Commission, Town Moderator, and other offices. I was appointed to the Ethics Commission by the Senate's Committee on Committees a year ago, last December, after Act 171 expanded the Commission's membership by giving both the House and the Senate the authority to appoint former municipal officers to the Commission. As you know, the Act also expanded the Commission's responsibilities to include municipalities and municipal officers. The governor allowed it to pass without a signature, and at the time he expressed fears that it amounted to an unfunded mandate because it did not include the resources needed to perform the Commission's expanded duties. Ethics commissions exist to ensure good governance by issuing training, advice, and opinions while acting as a neutral third party that gives the public a sense that our representative form of government is acting in their broader interests. Governmental ethics became a big thing in the post-Watergate era about 50 years ago, prompting several states to embed ethics commissions in their state constitutions because of public distrust in their elected officials. Today, as you know, we again find ourselves living in a time of shifting norms. A neutral and independent perspective on governmental ethics is perhaps needed now more than ever. Like Paul, I worry about the future of the Vermont Ethics Commission. In my brief time on the commission, I've witnessed a dedicated group of people who are stressed out and struggling to perform the tasks assigned to it by the legislature because of a lack of resources. One part-time director, one part-time administrative assistant, and 5 volunteer commissioners simply cannot adequately administer good governance programs and practices to all of Vermont's elected and appointed officials and civil service employees. For the last 2 years, we've asked both the administration and the legislature to include funds to support the 2 additional staff positions that we feel are needed to do the work that Act 171 tells us to do. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened, which is why we're here today. I understand that economically times are tight right now, and I was there for the recession budgets of 2008 and 2009. So I know what it feels like to shake the couch cushions looking for spare change and to fund essential programs. It isn't fun, and it's excruciatingly hard. That said, I'm inclined to acknowledge that the governor's words about Act 171 now seem prescient, that the legislature, while acting with good intent, created what amounts to an unfunded mandate. It's a time-honored practice to ensure an entity's failure by giving it more to do while limiting their resources. I respectfully ask this committee to advocate for Vermonters funding for the 2 additional staff positions that were promised in the discussions leading up to the bill's final passage last session. The Ethics Commission needs to actually perform the job it's been tasked with and not be a performative body with no actual capacity. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will. Any questions for Will?
I'm so glad you're continuing to serve well, and it's great to see additional capacity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. Nice to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Okay, we'll turn it over to TJ. This is the chart that you all have that you could follow along with. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of you, some of you in person. But for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name's TJ Jones. I'm an instructor of government accountability and governmental ethics, and I consult with state and local governments on those matters. Previously, I was the executive director of the Fair Political Practices Commission in the state of California. And prior to that, I was the first ethics enforcement officer appointed in the state of Connecticut. So I'm here today. I've had the honor of being able to work with the commission over the past several years. And I want to thank the committee again for tolerating me coming on and talking to you again. The written testimony that I provided to you was intended to kind of underscore where the commission is financially with respect to, in the first order, New England states, but then in the second order, other states that have formed commissions over the past decade and compared to their trajectory. The third chart is a rough cut chart that I'll get into in a second, but it might help if I give you sort of the general arc that I've seen of successful ethics commissions across the country. And the arc is that a code of ethics gets instituted, and then there's a period, depending on the size of the jurisdiction, 6 months to a year of just training. There's not even advice, it's just training. You train people on the code of ethics. And then an advice function is added after that, because once trained, people have questions about their own particular circumstances. So the arc goes from education to advice. And then after a full fleshing out of advice, when those requests start to wane, then the enforcement begins. And up until the advice part, Vermont had a laudatory trajectory. It was exactly what successful commissions have seen in other places. But it has seemingly stalled out at the advice part, and not just stalled out this past year, but it's begun retreating. And as somebody who tries to promote good government nationwide, it's somewhat troubling, and I hope that I can help the committee turn that around. The first chart here is a comparison of just a straight comparison of budgets and staff across New England. You're probably aware that New Hampshire does not have an ethics commission yet. They're one of 2 or 3 states that don't have one right now. The main commission, you'll see that I've footnoted there, are a little bit different in a couple of ways. The first is that they factor the pension payments to former employees into the agency budget. And then they do 2-year budgets, so you have to kind of figure that out. They also govern elections in the state of Maine, although that's not the bulwark of their work. So it's a little bit different in their state. But the raw numbers might help. You see, Vermont is a smaller state than all those, and you would expect it to have a smaller budget in terms of ethics and a smaller staff. But these are mature entities, particularly Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, so you expect them to have more staff, but it's a higher degree than I thought it would be when I set out to make these charts. The second chart, as I said, was states who are following a similar trajectory. Wisconsin, New Mexico, North Dakota, and New York. And they all came to their ethics commissions, their new ones, in different ways. But they've all been established within the past 10 years. And they too are at the sort of following the same trajectory. All of them have begun enforcement to date. They've gone through the education phase, the advice phase, and now they're starting to enforce. So I thought I would compare staffs and budgets to those states. North Dakota is probably the most comparable state in terms of state population. And you'll see there that their budget is roughly, it looks like 6 times the amount of the Vermont Commission. And they have 3 full-time staff people there that are working for their commission. They have not fully implemented their enforcement plan. So these are just people who are working with the education and advice function. The last chart to me may be the most telling, and this is a comparison of New England states with respect to how many employees there are at the commission per population.
We have a question from one of the committee members.
TJ.
Oh, absolutely.
It's great to see you again. Thank you for continuing to have faith that we'll actually get this up and running in a substantive way. The thing I'm missing on this, and it may not be comparable enough to even list it, which is the number of cases in each state. And I don't know if it's, I know there are apples and oranges, but do you track the number of cases each one of these commissions hears a year?
I do not do it as a routine matter. I'm happy to provide that to the commission. The timing of this hearing is great because everybody either has or is about to submit their annual report, including the Vermont Ethics Commission. So those numbers will be in there, and I'm happy to, when those numbers come out, share them with the
I just
committee.
think that in addition to, as we look at numbers of complaints would be great. And of course, ours, given how kind of crippled our commission has been, our ethics commission has been, and we've had to turn away being able to accept complaints. For us, I know it's hard to actually have numbers because we haven't actually been able to take enough cases. But it would be interesting to hear the number of cases the other states are dealing with, this with the staff and the budgets that they have.
Thank you, Senator. I will do that. I will collect that for you.
Right.
With respect to the third chart, this is an attempt, and I'll admit that it's a rough cut way of doing it, but trying to figure out how many staff people per body of population in all these states. And Vermont, in its wisdom, got to municipal ethics before a couple of these states. Connecticut is still, it's an evergreen each legislative session to try and get municipal ethics. But that puts the total of people that the Ethics Commission is supposed to give advice to much higher than it would normally be, say, in the state of Maine. These numbers are all from the U.S. Census on state and local employees. And you see in that far column there that the one staff member, and I'm using one as half of an administrative assistant and half of an executive director, has to take care of almost 46,000 people. And it's very fortunate for everybody that there's not 46,000 requests for advice every year. But it does underscore one of the problems, that the advice function really is critical for people to understand how the code of ethics might apply to their own personal situations. And if they can't receive that advice, it's both inefficient for them, and there's research that talks about how ethics commissions actually save states money in the long run. But over and above that, they save state employees and state officers time and money themselves, that they're able to ideally get quick answers to their questions. But that's impossible, and it has proven impossible for this commission. And the numbers sort of underscore that in the third comparison here. Massachusetts is the next closest, and they also have municipal employees. And I know from my own experience with them that they are overtaxed right now, but they've had the luxury of being able to set up a system with the municipalities so that they manage to spend less time with the municipalities by filtering information down to the municipalities and through ethics liaisons at the municipal level. So those three charts are intended to demonstrate on paper how the Vermont Ethics Commission has been lagging, and it really is almost solely related to money and staff at this point in time. I did advise earlier on, because I've been involved in budget processes with commissions before. I told them that based on my experience, they probably needed 4.5 people right now for the obligations that they have before the enforcement function kicks in. They would need a full-time executive director, absolutely critical, a full-time legal counsel whose job would be to answer state advisory requests, a full-time municipal counsel who can handle and become an expert with the municipal code of ethics. And then a part-time paralegal, a part-time office administrator, and then for the early parts of the year, a part-time ethics trainer. And so this would amount to 4.5 employees. So having experience with state government, I suggested that they ask for 6 people in the hopes that they could get at least 3. But they've come to you with a bare minimum. And I'm hopeful that they'd be able to engage in all the functions at least an acceptable level if they get the staffing that they're asking for here. This will be just I don't want to give you any spoilers, but when the enforcement function kicks in another 1.5 years, I think you will probably need to supplement the staff there again. And in addition to the 4.5 people that I would recommend right now, I believe you would need a full-time enforcement attorney and a part-time investigator at that time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I thank you, Mr. Jones, for coming in again and speaking with us. It's nice to see you on the screen again. So I appreciate your charts. I'm wondering if there's any data related to any of the states you've listed and comparing to Vermont, just like the number of like incoming contacts. Like I assume you track incoming contacts or incoming requests. So I'm wondering if there's a way to compare those, because I think if I'm understanding the point you're trying to make, at least with the last chart, it's that Vermont, for every 1 staff member, is working along the lines of a group of around 45,000 people, versus like Connecticut, we're looking at around 4,000, 5,000 people. So I understand what you're saying in that regard, but is the number of folks who are the number of incoming contacts or requests the same as what we're seeing in Connecticut? Less than what we're seeing in Connecticut? I guess that's more.
Well, that's sort of what I asked for in terms of the number of cases they get set every year.
Yeah, I don't just want the cases. I want to know like how many people are actually reaching out. Like if you're truly to shut down your website with municipal requests, that makes me think you're getting like 5 a day.
Well, I think that's what I was asking for.
Oh, is that-
It's like, who's asking you to weigh in?
Yeah.
How many cases? I mean, each one is a
Okay.
case.
Okay. All right.
And I will provide that to the committee. I'll provide whatever I'm able to acquire.
Yeah, I guess just to differentiate, like, I know what you're saying, Allison. I'm saying before they even become like a thing. It's like
Yes.
how many people are just straight up reaching out to them. Because I think that is different, because I think that you might see more folks. You almost want to see, I would love to see like a chart of like over time, because I think that will help make the case. If we are going to increase your budget, like what does that look like? Because I don't necessarily think an incoming contact, like the next step isn't case. It actually might be the exact opposite. It might be what I hear from municipalities is someone says we're acting unethically. They get a call, they call someone, and no, it's completely irrelevant. Unethical, no. Them disliking you and snubbing you at the co-op does not mean that, that's an unethical piece of behavior. So it's almost like your job is not just following up on those complaints, it's giving people the tools to make a decision about if that complaint is relevant. And so I don't see
Advice
it.
and counsel, so that.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'm just trying to make that point. So, right.
And if I could interject 2 quick points. One, Senator White, that's exactly what we do our best to do. Informal resolutions is
Yeah.
part of also. And now that we have on our website, municipalities don't bother contacting us, the number of contacts have gone down.
Okay.
Sure.
That's a great point.
So I have a question, and I don't know who can answer it. I don't think Pat McDonald can, and she's gonna join us here in just a minute. I don't see the FY 26 budget figures. I see 24 and 25. They're not on this chart. Can someone tell me what the FY 26 budget was? Yes,
What they,
I know that I can't. And the reason is because many of the states are going through that right now.
Okay,
calculating. These were the most recent numbers I could
All
come
right.
across.
and again, I don't know, who can answer, who can't. Is your request for that 601 in the governor's recommended budget?
The governor's not recommended that, if that's
Okay.
what they're asking.
Okay.
We asked for that to be recommended, but he has not.
Okay,
I think it's level funded at 250.
It is
all right,
in the government budget.
just point of information.
No, very.
So Pat McDonald from Campaign for Vermont, if you'd like to join us at the table. We have about 12
We do
minutes
this.
left.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. For the record, my name is Pat McDonald. And, among other things, I'm president of Campaign for Vermont. How do they talk you into things like that? I don't know. But anyway, for those of you I don't know as well, I know some of you pretty well. I was 20 years in state government, worked for Governors Snelling, Dean, and Douglas, and had 7 appointed positions. I think I hold a record. Cordy tried to get to me, but anyway. After I left in 2006, I ran for the legislature and served in House government operations. And then when I left in 2010, I started working with Campaign for Vermont and also doing a public access TV show, A Vote for Vermont, which is still going and very popular. We reach about 20,000 people. And I'm very interested. We got interested in ethics, I think about 2017. We've been since the beginning, Campaign for Vermont. And while Paul didn't mention it, Senator, I wanted you to know that in the beginning, everything is confidential, which gives people a really good sense of security. And that's what I wanted to talk about actually is Vermonters. And it isn't discussed much in this conversation about ethics. And I'll give you an example of why I got involved in this. When I was commissioner of motor vehicles, I would take new employees over here to give them a tour myself, because that's our building right out the window and you would see it every day. And I thought you should know who's, sort of approving your check and writing the policy. So we would come over. And one day, walking over here, and I hear this noise. And I looked behind me with the young lady that was coming over with me. She was just drenched, nervous, just a wreck, sweating. It was really, and breathing heavy. I'm like, I don't want to give her name, but I said, Sally, what's wrong? And she said, I've never been here before. I don't know what to expect. And I'm very worried about it. And since I lived over here for 20 years, I was looking, well, at that time it was 10. I was looking at her like, what? Because we all take it for granted what happens in this building, but the public doesn't. And I started asking all the other employees that I would take over, have you been to the State House? What do you think? And they all said pretty much the same thing, except without the dramatics. And when ethics came up, I thought, who is going to go to the legislature? The name Senator Luzzi comes up and say, complain about a senator you may know, and in the courts, the same thing. Who's going to go and complain about a judge? It's so important to have this ethics commission because it's confidential. It's not in these 2 buildings, and you have a chance to talk it out and to hear yourself what you're saying or asking about individuals. And I think that's critical to get Vermonters to come forward and speak up. But interestingly, it's exactly the opposite in my mind on the municipal side of things, because as I'm sure you've all been involved, as I was on select boards, and you know them, they know you, and you know how small towns work. So if you choose to bring a complaint forward to the town manager, good luck. It doesn't work well. This way, you go to the Ethics Commission quietly, privately, confidentially, and you're able to talk it out and in some cases resolve the issue without it becoming public. And then at the point where it becomes public, you've got people behind you supporting what you're saying. And I think that's critical. And I've not really heard people talk about that. We talk about ethics, what it means tangibly about what having conflicts of interest are, but we don't talk about Vermonters. And I think they're the most important part. And like my employees, afraid to come over here. Never been over here, yet they've been staring out the window for, 10, 12 years at this building, not having a clue what's going on. And I think that that's wrong. I really support Paul and all of the others who spoke about supporting the Ethics Commission with funding. We started talking about this a lot last year with Christina, Ben Kinsley and I. And I really support that. This is something very important. We were sort of tired of getting Fs from the federal government because we didn't have an ethics policy. And for the legislature and the judiciary, your policies can be stronger than the ethics policy. It's like the relationship that the state has with the feds. The feds pass a bill, ours can be stronger and wider, but can't be weaker and narrower. And so they can all work in harmony because it'll all be, the basics will be the same. It's a very basic policy that we've come up with. And I think if you ask people what should be in the policy, they'd name exactly what we've got. It's not brain surgery, it's really common sense. So that's my testimony and I thank you.
Okay.
It's like riding a bike, just.
Any questions for Pat? Yes, Senator Clark.
It reminds me that we should maybe circulate our state code of ethics just to remind ourselves how common sense they were, because we bashed them out. We really worked really hard on them.
Yeah.
You were a chief architect right from the
Right.
beginning. And
It's a good reminder.
it's a good reminder. I mean, we don't do that at the beginning of session. We
Right.
don't circulate our code of ethics. And it really would be a good thing for us to do at the beginning of.
Now, I think the governor actually has, when we sign on to be exempt employees, there is something that if I remember, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
There is a sort of a code of ethics that you will do this and you will not do this.
Right, but we don't do that. We do not do ethics training here. We do
No,
sexual
that's
harassment
important.
training, we do respect training. We do not do ethics training, and we need to do ethics training every beginning
I
of
totally
every day.
agree with you, because you need to be reminded, because it isn't, as I said, brain surgery. It's pretty simple things. And I think everybody could say what should be in it, and it is.
I think there's an ethics panel in both chambers.
There is an ethics path.
But they're not very
Well,
vocal, then we
training.
don't hear about
Okay.
them. Yeah.
Senator Bielanski.
As a member of the ethics panel,
There you
in
go.
the Senate, we have actually asked the pro tem to hold an ethics training for the Senate.
Oh, great.
We had a lovely one. TJ and Christina presented to the ethics panel and found it incredibly informative, incredibly helpful, and we have asked to schedule that for the whole Senate. We have not heard back yet, but we have made that recommendation, so we agree with you. I'm wondering, I know prior, because I wasn't in this committee, but I was in the House Government Operations Committee when the Ethics Commission was stood up and fought really hard for it to be as strong as it could be, and continue to fight to make it stronger. And I know at that time we got an F. Do you know where we are now? Because I thought last I looked, we were a D.
I do not know, but I think we're sort of, I'm sure we're way up on the scale. I don't know about A because we don't have enforcement, but I would think maybe.
We are
B or C.
nowhere near an A.
No, I
No,
thought
we're
we
not.
were a
No,
C
we're
or a D
Yes.
last time I checked.
And I thought
We're
we were a
moving up.
D, but maybe TJ or Paul or.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning when I was thinking of what I wanted to say. And I thought, oops, somebody's gonna ask. But I don't know.
I
But it's
don't,
gotta be a,
I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
Still,
we
for
should find
public
out.
integrity, I know, a few years back it was D minus. I don't know.
That's
That's what I remember was that D minus.
Yeah.
so, but I think you're headed in, and I thank you for your support, because that's really, this is so important, especially if I might say on the municipal side, because
Yeah.
there are lots of stories that,
Well, the vast number of the complaints the commission gets are municipal complaints.
right, I would think so.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Pleasure to see you.
Thank you, you too.
Committee, let me suggest a 5-minute break. And I see Senator Weeks has joined us with the next item. So we'll take a break. Please be prompt